discussion at this time? Thank you. Roll call, please. Acting Board Secretary.
Can't hear you.
Roll call, please. Acting Board Secretary Colombo.
Ms. Bursch.
Present.
Mr. Carlson. Here. Ms. Franco Herman.
Here.
Ms. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Herrick. Here. Mr. Speck.
Present.
Ms. Spina.
Present.
Mr. Todd. Dr. Spence-Wallace.
Present. Everyone, please rise for the flag salute.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated, everyone. On behalf of all the Board of Education members, Superintendent McLaughlin and her cabinet, we once again welcome you to our October 18th public meeting. At this time, we will commence with our superintendents. With Mr. Ryan Walls, our Montgomery High School senior, for his student representative report.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, speaking to the mic.
Homecoming and senior sunrise were a huge success. I think that people really enjoyed having traditional high school experiences after a few years of disruption. There's been higher rates of attendance for clubs and sports and games and stuff, and just a genuine uptick in school spirit. And juniors and sophomores are really happy that the PSATs are over, but they're very glad that it's offered in the school and will have to travel and go out of their way to take it.
Does that complete your report, Mr. Rose?
Yep.
Oh, well, thank you. All right, at this time, Superintendent McLaughlin, you can commence with your public reports.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry about that noise. As you all know, through the communication that was sent last week out to the public with the updates on the website, and all of our public information shared has been updated, I wanted to share where we did update. So thank you all who came to the town hall and who attend the board meetings, and those who email us and communicate in any which way regarding full-day kindergarten. So I know some of the questions that came up were the cost over 6 months versus the annual cost for Montgomery Township and Rocky Hill, and the determination between Montgomery and Rocky Hill cost per average assessed home valuation. So what have we done since the town hall? We further reviewed all of our calculations. We coordinated with the appropriate authorities and experts. We had our budget numbers confirmed and the voter question, and I can confidently say they are correct. And we communicated the situation and the changes to the community immediately. So one of our auditors is here, and I'm going to have him speak to the next. Okay, so the first public question, well, it's one question, but the first part of the question is the recurring cost that is the forever increase to the operating budget. And that is unchanged. It is $1,620,152. And that is the cost for, as you can see, personnel, classroom furniture, curriculum resources, technology infrastructure, nursing medical supplies, safety security, and annual utilities. The second part is the one-time, so it's just for the 22-23 budget, one-time cost of $669,763. That is for the updates to the former K Connection building, which we hope to call the Early Childhood Center, where we will be relocating our preschool program. So all of these are accurate. Now, the calculation for Montgomery, the impact. So the total aggregate value of $3,981,697,400, I'm sorry, $3,981,697,451 is the total aggregate value of the home values in Montgomery, property values, right? Yeah, do you want to take that number?
Sure. Yeah, so this is kind of what we recalculated as there was some, some issues with the numbers that were presented. So the net valuation taxable for Montgomery is the $3,981,000,000. The proposed impact, we're saying, based on the referendum that went out for Montgomery's portion, is the $1,580,000 number. That gives you your tax rate, the percentage there of 0.0397. So if you use that figure, you can multiply out to get the tax impact on any home, just by multiplying your assessed value. So using that 0.0397, we're saying that the average home value in Montgomery was $505,000. The annual impact of that is $201. That is for the recurring piece.
Do you want me to speak to the
Yeah,
change here?
yeah.
So previously, because you weren't part of
Right,
that, so
yeah.
previously we had reported out, the number was divided by 2, and it was reported out the January to June number. So after meeting with the auditors and the bond council and the county and the state, I learned that number, the entire amount, has to be collected from January of 2023 through June 2023 for the first year. So that $201 estimated based on the average assessed home would be collected for the first year only, your February 23 and May 23 tax bill. Then moving forward, it would be part of the school budget that would be paid across August, November, February, May.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. Sure. Yes, okay.
What's the same number? So
Okay.
you can just talk to the point, the zero.
And the 16, right. So, okay, so this is the second part of the referendum, which is just the one-time cost to, get the systems in place that you need. Using the same net valuation taxable in the town, the proposed impact for just Montgomery's piece is $653,421. Dividing that gets you the tax rate, which then you can use. It shows again on here, based on the average home, $505,000 would be $83. That's an annual cost. And then it also breaks it down further to per $100,000 of assessed value. So if you take the value of your home, do the math, every $100,000 that you have would have a $16 impact well, I'm sorry, this is just a one-time cost. So, and again, as Mary mentioned, because this is for this referendum question is for the 22-23 school year, it will be raised in the first 2 payments in 2023, February and May, until the next fiscal year starts, and that will be just going back to your current costs, not this.
Right. This in its total will be one time in the 6 months, so we'd be paid in February and May. Now for Rocky Hill.
Yeah, sure. Again, now doing the math on the breakout of the proposed plan, you have the net valuation taxable that was used for Rocky Hill, the $145 million number. The proposed impact from the referendum, this is on the recurring costs, so this would start this year and be recurring every year after, is $39,580. Gives you in a net tax rate of this if you break out the percentage, 0.000272, multiply that number by your assessed value of your home, it will tell you the cost to, for your home. So again, on this slide, it breaks out two calculations, one for the average home in Rocky Hill, which is $488, $448, and that will be a cost of $133, and then it breaks it down further to per $100,000 of assessed value, which is basically $27 per 100,000. And again, this is the recurring cost, so this will then be raised in the first two payments of 23, and then the year after that, it will be broken out into four payments effectively.
The last slide is more Rocky Hill for the one-time cost.
And just like the Montgomery slide for the one-time cost is Rocky Hill, same figures up at the top. The proposed impact would be $16,342, gives you the tax rate, and then the calculations based on the average home and per $100,000 of assessed value. So again, if you know your assessed value, you can figure out what your tax impact is going to be. And this will be just a one-time deal and broken out basically between your February and May payments of 2023.
Right, then the recurring one goes into the annual budget, and then that's the 4 quarters, August, November, February, May. So in summary, we regret this error and appreciate all of the public engagement, and our numbers have been updated on the website. This presentation is already posted in the full day K on our main website. If you click the link under the town hall presentation, it's noted that the presentation has been updated as of, it was updated Friday, but then now the new update is today. And but please know the rationale for full day kindergarten, the academic and social emotional benefits remain the same. Okay, I will now take questions.
Yeah, if someone has questions.
Let's do that. Are there any board members that have questions for Mary or the auditor at this time?
I'd just like to make a statement. So I appreciate the fact that when we had the town hall and there were additional questions that were asked about this by the public, that people did go back, the district did go back and re-examine the figures and also brought the auditor in to make sure that there's no question about what it is. So I just wanted to say thank you for jumping on that.
And there were various stakeholders, with respect, that were involved in assisting the district with remedying this miscalculation. That included the tax officials from both Rocky Hill and Montgomery Township, and that would be Christine Witt and Michael Pitts respectively, as well as the State Department of Education, our county superintendent James, and the county level business administrator executive. So we were very pleased that these experts were able to jump in and provide that level of help and support to the district in correcting this error. So yes, sir?
Hi, my name is Lucas Kiddo. I'm a Montgomery Township
Speaking
resident.
to the mic, yes.
My name is
Thank you so
Lucas
much.
Kiddo. I'm a Montgomery Township resident. So I've heard a lot of talk about, the kind of tax increase when it comes to property taxes and full-day kindergarten. Has there been any discussion about how property values may increase to make us more competitive with towns for people coming in with full-day kindergarten? Let's say, Princeton has full-day kindergarten, we don't. Would that make us kind of more competitive in the area? And our property values actually go up because of it?
Well, you can guess yes, but I don't want to make any firm statements. That's a
Well, my question was, has there any been discussion on that angle of it?
So the quality of the school district does impact property values. Thank you.
This count for 3 minutes?
This is not the public comment at this time. We just opened the floor for the public to also ask questions specific to the tax impact as it relates to full-day kindergarten.
Hi, Janet Church from Skillman. Just a couple questions about
Ms.
this.
Church, could you sign in as well?
Oh,
since you're
okay.
standing up here?
That's fine, that's fine. How is this error being communicated to the community at large? I only found out about it from an email sent to parents that got forwarded to me. Other than that, I've heard nothing. And then today it was posted in the Montgomery News online. Will this information be corrected on any sample ballots, mail-in ballots, or in the voting booth? I also noticed, we just checked, there's not really an announcement on the district site about this change. You just updated the information, unless I'm wrong. I checked it earlier today, and I just checked it now. So I'm confused as to why this is not being promoted more as, this is a change. This is an error. And my other suggestion, do you want to answer those questions first?
So I forwarded the communication to the newspaper to have it posted.
Okay, I forwarded it first, actually. They got it from me first, so, okay.
I was going to say I forwarded to the newspaper before the e-bus went out to the community.
Okay, well, I said it this morning, she hadn't seen it, so. The other thing, is this going to be updated on all the voting information?
So the ballots are the accurate numbers. The total amount.
There's nothing broken down by,
No.
okay.
The numbers that were incorrect were the numbers to give the public an idea of how much it would cost for debt. I doubt anyone has a home valuation of that exact number, so that 201 is not even exact. That's just based on if your home is worth 500, 5,000, and whatever.
Gotcha. So, other than the newspaper, and the website itself does not have an announcement that this number was changed, right? Is that correct?
It does, but if you
I didn't
think
see
it's
it.
not standing out enough, I can look at the website.
Unless you know that it's changed, you don't know it's changed. Yeah. And then because of these changes being last minute, 3 weeks before the election, is there a chance that we could just table the kindergarten vote till next year?
No, the ballot is done, the election is already finalized.
So you feel the community has been made aware of a possible doubling of their tax bill? You feel that the community has that knowledge to make that? I'm just worried about everyone
The same
knowing.
channels of communication that we utilized the first time were utilized the second time.
But this is I'm just saying it's a very last minute, and it's a big change. I'm just giving you my feedback on it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Church. Board member Speck, you have a comment?
So one question I had was, I think actually part of the Montgomery tax rate actually went down. So, there are differences, and I think that, we will work, just like we are having this meeting, we're working, as the superintendent said, to, use the same communication channels that we did with the original proposal, and what the rationale is. Some of those things didn't change, as we said.
Hi, I'm Barbara Preston with the Montgomery News, and I have to get up and say that the superintendent reached out to me on Friday, and I had a little bit of confusion when I wrote the article today because the 6-month figure was right next to the 1-year figure. So I ended up, Janet, and I'm sorry, but I ended up putting double the price, and it actually was not that. And I would like to apologize to the board for that and take full responsibility for that. The article was up for 2 hours, and I did correct it immediately. And I also thank Janet for bringing that to my attention as well. So, but I do apologize to the board for that error. It's an error on top of an error. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being responsive. Are there any questions pertaining to the full day kindergarten? Matter only.
I know, thanks. Jeff Grant, 6 Livingston Drive. It just occurred to me that, there's a representation that the board made, not about the total amount, but how it's divvied up. It went out to the public, and now midstream it got changed. So the question is, we got an attorney on the board, board has an attorney, and the question is, has the legal opinion been rendered about what the appropriate course of action is? Should this question be pulled? Should it be, the voting be ignored until a proper process of informing the public is in place? Start stepping through it, having the vote, and then saying this is what everybody believes. That may not be the right way. So has a legal opinion been rendered on your activities and what you intend to do?
And Mr. Grant.
And yes, the bond counsel and our school board attorney have verified that the ballot questions are correct, the actual numbers are correct. It's the number that was given as an estimate based on an average home was the incorrect number. That's not on a ballot, that's not a legal number.
I understand that, but the publicity has not been correct. When people react to the publicity, they vote based upon what you tell them, the publicity behind the number that never changed on the ballot. So it's like advertising for a special for an automobile. And then you go to the dealer, and it's really a different deal. Your tax bill is really different than you were told it was going to be. So that's the point. It's a false advertising point done by our public body. You can look at it that way. I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm not an attorney, but you could look at it that way. And that's my point. If it's not properly advertised consistently, maybe it behooves us to pull the whole deal, ignore the vote, and do it again properly in the next cycle.
Good evening, board members. I was looking online and I saw a comment posted to the effect of that full-day kindergarten was going to be 5 hours long. And I assume that calculation was derived from taking the current 2.5-hour kindergarten and multiplying it by 2. I just want to clarify that the full-day kindergarten will be the same like the time that the rest of the first and second graders are in school. So for example, my first and second graders get picked up at 9 o'clock and they get dropped off at 4:30, give or take. Will the kindergartners be attending at the same time?
Yes.
So kindergarten is not partial day, it is full day, same time, 9 to 4:30, is that correct? Give or take with bus
With the
drop-offs.
bus runs.
Right,
yes,
right,
yes.
okay. That's one thing I want to clarify. Another thing that I saw online was people believing, and I'm going to use estimate numbers here, that, well, forget about what people believe, but what you have told us thus far is that for a home assessed in Montgomery for about $500,000, that the recurring increase in taxes would be around $200, give or take. I have been seeing online that people are claiming that it's $200 per every 100,000 of which you are assessed. Can you please clarify once again that the proposed increase is approximately $200,000 for a house that is assessed at $500,000?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I want to clarify tonight that $201 for that average assessed home will be collected in the first 2 quarters of the year.
Understood. Thank you very much.
include our questions germane to full-day kindergarten. Superintendent McLaughlin, I believe you have another presentation
Yes,
on the agenda.
our Director of Assessment is Stacy Young. He's going to present on the statewide assessment results. Thank you. For the 21-22 school year, which was last school year.
And please keep in mind, this is a presentation that's required by the State Department and must be facilitated by October of each fiscal school year.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening, Ms.
Stacy Young, Director of Equity Data and Accountability, and I'm here today to share out our 21-22 statewide assessment results. In this presentation, I'll be covering the following 3 assessments: the Access, the Dynamic Learning Maps, or the DLM, and if you can believe it, we're actually talking MTSD today, the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment. It's been a couple of years, and I'll be providing a district analysis and a demographic analysis of that data. Before we dig into the data, it's important that I take a moment to remind everybody of our student confidentiality laws. And essentially what those say is that in the reporting of group assessment data, it's our responsibility as a district to protect student privacy and prevent members of the public from discerning student identity. So in the Every Student Succeeds Act, it says that states need to select a minimum number of students or a minimum N size necessary for a particular subgroup. Our state, New Jersey, the NJDOE, maintains 10 as its minimum N size for school and district reporting. So throughout the report, you may see some instances where data is suppressed, and that is intentional. We'll begin first with the Access. Access stands for Assessing Comprehension and Communication in English State to State for English Language Learners. This is an assessment that's administered annually to our English language learners, or our ELs, and it is to assess their progress in learning academic English. It's anchored in the WIDA, English Language Development Standards, which assesses the 4 language domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Our students who are ELs are administered this assessment from kindergarten through 12th grade, and it was administered last school year between February and April of 2022. The Access has 6 proficiency levels, as you can see listed here, from entering, where a student knows and uses minimal social language and minimal academic language with visual and graphic support, all the way through to reaching, where a student knows and can use social and academic language at the highest level as measured by the test. Because we did not meet the minimum N size of participation per grade level, with the exception of 1 grade, the scores will not be recorded at the grade or subgroup level. Moving on then to the Dynamic Learning Maps, or the DLM. This is an alternate assessment in English language arts, mathematics, and science for our students with the most significant intellectual disabilities. It's given to students in grades 3 to 8 and 11 in ELA and math, and students in grades 5, 8, and 11 for science. Eligibility for this assessment is determined by our child study teams according to an individual's student's learning needs and ability. So for this particular assessment, students are not compared to other students, but evaluated for their own progress. We administered the DLM between April and May of 2022. Because we did not meet the minimum N size of participation per grade level in the DLM, the scores will not be recorded at the grade or subgroup level. Moving forward, the next administration of the Access will take place between February and March of 2023, and the next administration of the DLM will take place between April and May of 2023. Moving on to the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment, or NJSLA, we'll take a look first at our district analysis. Before we do that, I want to take a moment to just reflect on the past couple of years before we look at this data. As you can see here, in 2019-2020, we all remember what happened in March of 2020. We went fully virtual for the remainder of that school year. In 2020 and 2021, it was a turbulent year as we were navigating the pandemic. We went from virtual to hybrid to virtual to hybrid. And then just last year in 21-22, we were finally fully in person. So I think it's important to keep that in mind as we move forward and to look at the data. Starting first with participation in the NJSLA, you can see here in that first column to the left-hand side, that's the ELA assessment and all the grade levels that were assessed in ELA. And to the right of that, that second column, is the total number of students who participated in that particular assessment and the percentage of participation. Third column, again, is the math assessment, and to the right of that, again, total number of students who tested and percentage of participation. So you can see across the board for ELA and math that there was pretty high participation in the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment. The same could be said for science. Now in science, for the NJSLA, students were tested in just grades 5, 8, and 11. And again, you can see the total number of students who were tested in those grades and the percentage of participation. Again, looking at 97 and 98% of a participation rate in the NJSLA science for our district. The NJSLA has 5 performance levels for ELA and math, and I've color-coded them there in sort of your traditional traffic light colors to make them a little more digestible. So you can see level 1 there in that red is indicative of students who are not yet meeting grade level expectations, all the way down through level 5, which is that darker green, which is students that are exceeding grade level expectations. For the science NJSLA, it goes down to 4 proficiency levels, again color-coded similarly in that red to green. Red level 1, which is minimal, meaning a student demonstrates minimal understanding of the New Jersey Student Learning Standards in science, through to level 4, that dark green, which is advanced, which is where a student demonstrates advanced understanding of the New Jersey Student Learning Standards in science. So I'm going to take a moment to orient everyone to the screen that we're looking at now. This is English language arts data. And on the top half of the screen is our district data, and on the bottom half of the screen are the state of New Jersey averages for the same assessment. So again, we're looking at ELA, and you can see here that ELA was assessed in grades 3 through 9. And then that last bar graph all the way to the right are the district averages. Just at first glance, looking at that light green and that dark green bar, every grade level met proficiency at an average higher than the state. And I'll start by taking us through, starting with grade 3, which is all the way on the top left, that our grade 3 students met or exceeded in ELA at 52%. Our 4th graders came in at 73%. Our 5th graders at 76%. Our 6th graders at 63%. Our 7th graders at 82%. Our 8th graders at 71%. And our 9th graders at 82%. So that brings us to a district average of 73% of students meeting or exceeding in ELA, which is comparable to 2019, in which we were around 77%. I want to take us back to that 3rd grade number of students meeting or exceeding at 52%, and I want us to take a few things into consideration with 3rd grade. The first of which is that it is the very first time that our students are taking a statewide assessment. I think it's important to acknowledge that. Those assessments take stamina, they take cognitive demand, and so I think we need to have a little leeway with our 3rd graders. And we also need to keep in mind the experience that this particular cohort of students had. First of which, that in 1st grade, in March of 2020, those 1st graders left school and did not come back. For the remainder of the year, they were virtual. And then in 2nd grade, they had that hybrid year, that turbulent year of being in and out. And we also have to keep in mind that we had half-day kindergarten as well. So those students also only had a half-day experience in kindergarten. So I think it's important to keep those things in mind for that particular cohort. And we're certainly going to keep an eye on that data for that cohort moving forward. Looking at similar data for our mathematics scores, again, this is us on the top and the state on the bottom. We can see here just at a glance, looking at that light and dark green, that every grade level met proficiency at an average higher than the state with the exception of grade 8. And we're going to talk about grade 8 momentarily. But beginning again, top left with 3rd grade math. Our 3rd graders met or exceeded at 68%. Our 4th graders came in at that same number. Our 5th graders at 76%. Our 6th graders at 65%, our 7th graders at 61%, and our 8th graders at 8%. And Algebra 1 is also tested on the NJSLA. They came in at 76% meeting or exceeding, which brings us to a district average of approximately 63% of our students meeting or exceeding in math. And as compared to 2019, that was an average of 73%, so a little bit of a dip there. In terms of grade 8, we have to remember that we have a number of 8th graders who are taking Algebra 1 and Geometry, so they are counted in the Algebra 1 stat that you see there of 76% of students meeting or exceeding. And finally, looking at science here, again, keeping in mind that science goes down to 4 proficiency levels, similar color coding here. Again, looking at the lighter green and the darker green, every grade level that tested met proficiency at an average higher than the state. Our 5th graders came in at 60% meeting or exceeding, our 8th graders at 46%, and our 11th graders at 74%, which brings us to a district average of approximately 60% meeting or exceeding, which is in fact higher than our last iteration of this assessment. In 2019, our district average was 53%. We're going to take a look now, still at the NJSLA data, but this time at a demographic analysis. You'll notice here that we have only one set of bar graphs, and that's because the state of New Jersey has not released any state averages in subgroup data. So taking a look first, this is English language arts, this is subgroup race, and the categories of race are the ones identified by the state of New Jersey, so you can see that going across the bottom there, Asian, Black, Hispanic, multiple and multiracial, and white. And for English language arts, our students who identify as Asian came in at 83% meeting or exceeding, again, the light and dark green. Our Black students at 36%, our Hispanic students at 52%, our multiracial students at 66%, and our white students at 61%. Looking at the same subgroup race, this time for mathematics, Asian students coming in at 81%, our Black students at 24%, our Hispanic students at 44%, our multiracial students at 58%, and our white students at 53%. And then finally our science, again subgroup race, our Asian students at 64%, our Black students at 16%, our Hispanic students at 34%, multiracial at 61%, and our white students at 40% proficient or advanced in science. The next subgroups identified by the state are gender, so you can see there on the left-hand side are students who are female, and to the right are students who are male. And we're looking at English language arts on this slide, and our students who identify as female are coming in at 76% meeting or exceeding on English language arts, and our students who identify as male are coming in at 69% meeting or exceeding in English language arts. Again, looking at subgroup gender, this time mathematics, you can see on the left-hand side are students who are female coming in at 64%, meeting or exceeding, and our students who are male coming in at 70% meeting or exceeding. And then finally science, again, subgroup gender, our female students on the left there coming in at 52%, proficient, advanced, or meeting or exceeding, and our male students at 53%. The next set of data that we're going to look at is subgroup program, and you can see the programs going across the bottom there. We have free and reduced lunch, section 504, L or English language learners, special education, and general education. It's important to keep in mind when looking at this particular subgroup that a student can be counted in more than one of these categories. So a student can qualify for free and reduced lunch and also have a 504, for example. So looking then, English language arts all the way to the left for our students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, they're coming in at 36%, meeting or exceeding. Section 504 at 61%. Our English language learners at 56%. Our special education students at 25%. And our gen ed population at 79%. And this is again for English language arts. Again, subgroup program, but this time for mathematics, beginning all the way to the left. Our students who qualify for free and reduced lunch coming in at 24%, meeting or exceeding. Section 504 at 53%. Our English language learners at 58%. Our special education students at 26%, and our general education students at 73%. And then finally, subgroup program, this is science, remembering that science is assessed in only 3 grades, 5, 8, and 11, so in some cases, subgroup data needs to be suppressed. So all the way to the left there are students who qualify for free and reduced lunch coming in at 5% proficient. Our Section 504 students at 41%, and our general education students at 58%. What I've done here in the next 3 slides is done a comparison of our pre-pandemic last year of NJSLA, which is 2019, which is represented in that yellow bar, as compared to 2022, which is our first post-pandemic administration of NJSLA, and that's represented in that green bar. The numbers that are represented on the bottom of the screen are the same. I've just turned them into bar graph form to make them a little more digestible. So you can see here for ELA, in terms of meeting and exceeding, our district average in 2019 was a 79%, and in 2022 we're looking at a 73%. This is mathematics, again a comparison of 2019 and 2022. Again, 2019 in the yellow, 2022 in the green. And we can see here that our district average in 2019, pre-pandemic, was 76%, and post-pandemic in 2022 at 67%. And then for science, again, science is tested in grades 5, 8, and 11. 2019 in the yellow, 2022 in the green. And we can see here that our district average in 2019 for science was a 44%. And our average in 2022 is a 60%. So we have all of this data. What do we do with it? I'm going to tell you a little bit about some interventions. Starting first, though, on a high note with some notable achievements. Our students outperformed the state in levels 4 and 5 in English language arts at every grade level, mathematics at every grade level except 8, which we talked about, and every grade level tested in science, which is fantastic. Our students also outperformed their 2019 district-wide average in science by 16%. And our English language learners, or our ELs, outperformed their 2019 average in English language arts by 20%. Moving into some interventions. So New Jersey uses what's called a tiered system of supports. It's a framework or a support structure for interventions, and it has 3 tiers. That tier 1, the universal supports, is that natural differentiation that occurs in the classroom. So the student needs additional support. A teacher has a toolkit that they can draw for that's accessible to any student. If a student is continuing to meet challenges or struggles, then they move into tier 2. And tier 2 is not universal. It's very specific and targeted to student needs. And if a student continues to struggle or is challenged by something in particular, while in tier 2, then we move to tier 3, which is that more intensive intervention. So what does that actually look like in the classroom? Well, in tier 1, universal supports for all students look like things like graphic organizers, chunking assignments, having additional audio or visual supports, decodable readers, that sort of thing. In tier 2, again, that's that more targeted support. That includes small group instruction that can happen in or out of the classroom. It also includes things like our academic support program. And then again, tier 3 is that formal referral or evaluation process that ends up ultimately in things like an IEP. We have a couple of interventions district-wide that I'd like to share with you all, the first of which is the Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, which is essentially a planning philosophy or a set of instructional practices that help us find more ways to help students achieve mastery in the classroom. And so we are in year 3 of a comprehensive professional development or PD plan in UDL, keeping in mind, of course, what the last 3 years looked like for all of us. But in year 1, the professional development on UDL was primarily for our supervisors and our child study team members. In year 2, it was introduced to all of the staff, and we're currently in year 3 right now. And so we're training some highly supported teacher leader cohorts. We've got our consultants on site coaching, and we have training coming into the district on our professional development days as soon as next week, I believe. And we also have a very new and exciting intervention in STAR 360. This is an ELA or math assessment platform that's aligned to the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. and the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment. And so what makes this a fantastic platform to use is that it is actually able to predict success on the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment, which can be a very useful tool for us. It is administered in the classroom by teachers a couple of times a year, fall, winter, and spring, and it's really a teacher assessment tool because it gives them the ability to see how their students are performing in real time, the students that are actually in their classroom at the moment, and identify gaps and figure out the interventions to address those gaps. So that's new to us this year. Some other interventions to keep in mind is that we are always regularly monitoring and analyzing and discussing student data. All of our staff members are our teachers, our counselors, our administrators, and our team at department meetings. We're continuously using our performance data to determine the efficacy of our curriculum and our instructional practices. And then our content area supervisors really work closely with our teachers in identifying any standards or skills or concepts that our students are not adequately grasping. I'll also mention that the past couple of years we've offered summer tutoring for our students with the highest needs. Those students are identified by our content area supervisors. And of course, we also have our Achieve program, which supports our students with the highest needs as well. Taking a look at some interventions specific to English language arts, you can see in that elementary grade band that there are a lot of interventions that are K2, and that's because we really want to identify anything that our students are struggling with as early as possible. So some of those interventions are listed there. Our universal literacy screener in K1, that's administered 3 times a year. We've worked on increasing some of our resources for Tier 1. If you might recall, Tier 1 are those universal supports. We also have included some additional academic support interventions for our youngest learners. And our K-4 special education department did a literacy review, a review of our literacy interventions recently to determine the effectiveness of them. And I'm talking pull-out, LLD, autism, etc. And are moving forward with some decision-making on what is effective and what we might want to change out there. Our middle grades are continuing with using data to inform groupings in the classroom, continuing with that one-on-one conferencing, and using that available flex time to them for additional targeted support for our students. And in high school, we have a literacy skills lab course for our students who demonstrate the most significant need for additional support. And we also, of course, in high school have after-school support available, study hall, etc. In math, we've got a new program, our K-3 Bridges program, and that helps to identify and target foundational skills to help our struggling learners. So it'll be exciting to see how that rolls out this year. Our middle grades, in response to the data, are taking a look at the scope and sequence of middle school math. That's currently under review, so we'll see where that lands. And in terms of high school, very similarly to English language arts, there's also a mathematics lab course that's for our students to demonstrate needing the most additional targeted support. In addition, again, to study hall, after-school support, the Achieve program, etc. As for science, again, in response to our data, the science curriculum is going to be undergoing a curriculum audit this year. Now, we would be remiss not to talk about some of our mental health interventions because, of course, being mentally and emotionally and socially well is so important in a direct connection to academic performance. So here are some of the mental health interventions that we have in place here. We've got the creation of a Zen Den coming up at the high school, which is for mindfulness and relaxation and self-regulation. Something similar at UMS called the Air Room. An increase of self-regulation tools in our classrooms. We offered summer counseling. There have been depression screenings for grades 5 to 12 with follow-up where needed. And I do want to mention the addition of something brand new to us this year called the Social Institute, which is intended for grades 5 to 8. And that's an online learning platform that empowers our students to navigate the social world positively. And we know that that's incredibly important for students at that age. Moving forward, the next administration of the NJSLA will take place this May, 2023. And that concludes my presentation. At this time, I'm happy to take questions from the board.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Board members? any questions to Ms. Young about MTSD and mental health data?
Thank you so much, that was wonderful. And this is just for you to confirm to the community that sorry. Last board meeting, there was a lot of concern for academics, learning loss, learning gaps, and here we're showing the community what we have in place, the testing tools, the interventions, and again, trying to be as transparent and clear and educate them as possible. Correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Can I ask, these interventions, do they work for every student? I mean, can every student improve with these interventions?
I will say I think there's an intervention out there for every student. The goal is really to identify what a particular student needs and the intervention, the intervention that'll best fit their needs. Our director of curriculum often uses this example of Swiss cheese. Every student has different gaps, different holes in their learning, and so our goal is to identify those gaps and figure out the intervention that fits best in response.
Board members, any other question, please?
Yeah. So you had mentioned during the presentation that the current NJSLA data was for the third graders that had been out in first grade. They're now fourth graders, and I'm just curious as to when an analysis of Start Strong data might happen, and then how we can expect to see our current third graders perform in JSLA based on Start Strong, and whether or not you think that the data is at all helpful in helping teachers to prepare for the May testing.
Sure. So unfortunately at this point we don't have Start Strong data. The state has not released that yet. I'm hopeful that we'll have that in about the next month or so, but I don't have an exact date for that. But at that point, we'll absolutely unpack that Start Strong data and see if there's any correlation to that 2022 NJSLA data. They are two very different tests, so I don't always like the idea of comparing the two because they're not exactly comparable, but I think it would be worthwhile to take a look at that Start Strong data. So as soon as we have it, yes.
So I like the fact that after you presented all the data, you showed kind of what is the data telling us and what we're doing to try to address any things we saw. I guess one question I have is, as you noted in one of your slides, and it showed in the green and yellow bar graph, was science went up. And with the pandemic, I would almost think that science would be hit maybe even more than English and math. Do you have any sense of what contributed to that?
Sure. So I want to be responsible and not necessarily give a specific answer as to why I think that happened, but what I can say is that in 2018, science was a field test. So essentially the NJDOE said, here, have another assessment in NJSLA in science. And so there were no scores reported out in 2018 for science. That was just sort of information gathering for them. So really the only other data set that we have available to us in science is that 2019 data. And so I really think to answer that question responsibly, we need a little more data. We need to see what happens next.
Right, okay. The second thing that I noticed was when we broke things down along racial lines, there were more significant disparities. And do you have any thoughts about that? That what can be done, or do you see it changing over time, or any other comments around that area?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and it has a pretty loaded response. I'm going to do my best to summarize it. That disparity in student achievement that we're seeing for historically excluded and marginalized populations, I'll narrow it further and just pick a particular subgroup and say our Black students, for example, is what's known as an opportunity gap, formerly known as an achievement gap. And this is a phenomena that we have been studying in education for decades and decades. education researchers, scholar practitioners, sociologists, everybody's trying to figure out this phenomena because it's not exclusively a Montgomery problem. It's not even just a Somerset County problem. It's not even just a state of New Jersey problem. It is a nationwide problem that we're seeing manifest in our data. And so, professionally, I don't think that I could stand here and offer you a handful of interventions and say that that's going to be what does the trick. But I know that our staff members, our Board of Ed members, our administrators work every day towards equity and inclusivity and belonging so that we can try to address some of those opportunity and access barriers that prevent our students in those excluded and marginalized populations from doing their best.
Thank you. And it seems that you talked about UDL, and basically that provides an opportunity for teachers to differentiate instruction and things. So it seems like that would be very applicable to the situation divided along racial lines, because they'd be able to see what particular students, individual students, in fact, regardless of what race they are, they can target what that particular student needs, if I got that correct.
Absolutely, and I hate to keep using that old cliche of tools in the toolkit, but that's really what it is. It helps build that toolkit so that there are more interventions to draw from. So yes. Sure.
Any other questions, board members?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Young, for that excellent presentation. And that concludes the superintendent's reports and presentations for today. And now we transition to our new business. The Board of Education welcomes and encourages input from the public. Members of the public are allotted one opportunity to bring any new business to the board for up to a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. All comments or questions must be directed to the board president. Before you make your comment, however, please state your name and address and write it in the notebook that's provided at the podium. Being mindful of privacy rights regarding students and board employees and to avoid any potential liability on the part of the speaker, the board discourages references to specific individuals. While directing your comments or questions to the board president, please understand that the public comment portions of the meeting are not structured as Q&A sessions, but rather are offered as opportunities for you to share your thoughts with the board. The board president may need to refer an issue to the superintendent if the particular issue has not been handled through the appropriate chain of command within the school district. There are times when comments and questions will require additional fact gathering before response is provided. Responses may be provided, however, at the end of the session. So, Acting Board Secretary Colombo, let's begin and open up public comment. Secretary Colombo will remind each speaker when 2.5 minutes have passed and 30 seconds is remaining so that you may begin to wrap up your comments and or questions. Thank you for your cooperation.
Okay, well, welcome to the board member. Good luck with the work begin, hard work begin, and welcome to our new secretary. My name is Jeff Grant, 6 Livingston Drive, and I'm here to talk about a topic that I really don't want to talk about. I'm sick of it. I want to stand up here and address this board. I'm doing so to help this board, and by extension, help our town, our county, our state, and our country. Thank you for your service, all of you, and our school system needs your help. I, like other Americans, have empathy and respect for those that have alternative lifestyles and life beliefs. However, they remain culpable to speak and act responsibly and morally like every other American. My remarks in response to Mr. Rodriguez, chair of the MTEA Equity Committee statements at the August 23rd board meeting. He was here, spoke publicly. They talked about a one registration cancellation that happened during the Harmonica Sunbeam event. I self-identify. I was that one registration cancellation. He stated that he sought to address a false narrative surrounding the event, yet he does not realize that what he has done so from a position of lies and deceptions. He claimed that it was okay to invite Harmonica Sunbeam because she was from some trustworthy channel That's wrong and a lie. That channel didn't bring her here. He brought her here. A simple YouTube search would have revealed Muslim nightclub acts, which are some of the most disgusting displays of perversion that I've ever witnessed. Imagine a horrible stain it left on young Montgomery students' minds if they did a YouTube search. She's not so sweet when you see her nightclub acts. Mr. Dolan, the MTEA president, is responsible for making sure Mr. Rodriguez does his job properly. They both fail to protect their children from immorality. Mr. Rodriguez described his event registration form. Just because it says adults without elementary school children could not be included is a deception. The legal reality is that after-school events held on government facilities are open to the public, like football games and drama productions. The MTA lied about its authority to reject attendees, and it directed our police force to illegally bar me from attending the event. Mr. Rodriguez remarked pejoratively about the protesters. 2 words, Mr. Rodriguez, peaceful assembly. Mr. Rodriguez remarked pejoratively about the protesters.
Mr. Grant,
Yes.
I'm going to interrupt you and remind
Stop
you
the
to
clock.
please refrain from using staff members.
Stop the clock. He said it here publicly. If he says it publicly, I can mention his name publicly.
That is a violation of
I
our
don't think it
policy.
is.
Yes, it is.
I would like a written legal
And
opinion about that. If you
we
speak
will
publicly,
absolutely
you're
confirm
responsible
that
for what you say.
There's a potential liability on your part.
Sue me.
You need to be
Sue
mindful
me.
of that.
Sue me.
And we ask you to kindly refrain from using board and staff members' exact names when you are submitting your public comment.
All right, the MTEA equity chair. It escaped him that those terrible protesters included some parents that were praying the Holy Rosary for Ms. Sunbeam in the MTEA equity chair. Many good and moral teachers in our school system, I encourage you to vote with your dollars and immediately resign from this teachers union. Your leaders cannot be trusted. We parents teach our children not to lie and deceive because we know that lying and deception is the root of evil. This is a lifelong fact. I recommend that the equity chair, MTE equity chair, and the president and the rest of the MTEA leadership learn and practice this simple childhood morality lesson from us parents.
Good evening. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Wei Ping Dong. I live 14 Lin Place, Gilman. And tonight I want to talk about the equal opportunity of taking AP, calculate BC class for current ninth grader who are taking same class, pre-calculus honor class with a sophomore and a junior. Yeah, on our high school website, it have the program of studies. Under the description of the AP Calculus BC class, for the prerequisite says open to students in grade 11 and 12 with pre-calculus honor average over 94 above. So that means the current ninth grader who have a same score or even better cannot take this class according to this prerequisite. So that means in the same class, right, everybody learn with the same teacher. And then for next year, only the sophomore and the junior can take the advanced challenge AP class. but those ninth graders have to take another lower level. So that's obviously not an equal opportunity to them. Yeah, so I think in the same program of study, right, it's showing our MHS community encourage or pursue their individual goal in a challenging. It says in challenging. It's not the way. Okay, here. Encourage or pursue their individual goal in a challenging, supportive, and a safe environment. Deliver an instructional program that address a variety of learning style, interests, and levels of readiness for all students in all disciplines. So my concern is, if they take the same class, they should have equal opportunity.
30 seconds.
Okay, next year, same class, right? So now it's only October. Until next year, course selection, we still have 5 months to consider this problem. I know there have administrator, include the board and principal and maybe superintendent and the supervisor. They all meet together to talk about the new program of studies, right? So I think you should consider this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello. I'm getting taller now. Karen Anderson, King Court, 126 King Court. So a couple topics. One is the emails that were being filtered. We sent emails to the Board of Ed using their email ID, and there was issues with it that were brought up last time. Thank you for fixing them. They appear to be fixed, but still I don't see any questions. And there are, why were they filtered? How were they filtered? How many were sitting in quarantine? I don't see any of the missing emails listed in your minutes. I'll give you a list of my questions that are unanswered because I emailed them twice to you. I did get a call from the secretary, the prior secretary, with some answers, but I have copies for many of you here I can share. Second topic, the word fear. I've heard this word used repeatedly by several of the BOE candidates during last week's forum, and also from others that have spoken during public session. I think there's a misnomer being spread about people in our community having fear of LGBTQ plus individuals. Based on what I know about my peers, this is not about fear. You're not aware of our family makeups. Personally, my mother-in-law is a lesbian. I've known her and her partner for over 30 years. I love them both dearly, and they've been loving and supportive family members to me and my children through thick and thin. So the crux is not fear. The crux is the issue is a line that exists between parenting and schooling. Parents are given dominion, I say by God, so many of us believe this, over their children to nurture, shelter, and protect, not the school. And in each household, this line is differently placed based on the individual family's belief system, which includes religion, cultural, and their traditions. And we see this line is shifting, such that the school is gaining more and more control and influence in areas of non-academic learning. Now, some families are very comfortable with the school system teaching these non-academics. And they believe the school and trust that the school is all-knowing in what is good for our children. Other families, based on their beliefs, don't want the school to be involved to that degree. This is the problem. It's not fear. And it's the school demanding we accept their decision of where the line is. Thinking of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I don't see anything in there that says the school's responsible for all of that or where that line is. It's not fear of particular individuals. Our community's battle right now is about a line, about how much control the school is pushing and trying to limit the parents' abilities to be the teachers to their children of these non-academic issues. And no, I hate bringing this up too. Many of us in this community do not want a drag queen reading to our children. I didn't know he was going to talk about that. But drag queens are too closely affiliated with X-rated adult entertainment. And there's no denying that. I recall when the superintendent tried to open the email with Monica Sundin's YouTube video, and it was blocked. She couldn't open it from her laptop, so her laptop protected her, but you didn't protect our kids. There are many varied opinions in our community as to what is appropriate age-wise teaching. When have we lost that human brain isn't fully developed or mature until mid-20s? That medical fact hasn't changed or managed. It seems like it's ignored.
Thank you so much. Do you want to distribute those questions? Would you like us to answer? You can give it to me and I'll make sure everyone gets a copy. I got it. You're welcome.
Before I begin, I just wanted to comment on the comment that one of the residents made earlier. The kindergarten program right now, it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. Look it up on the website. So each program, and then there's an hour break for lunch. I do not count travel time on the bus as educational program. Tonight, I would like to address lack of transparency in our district. When I reflect on comments made before the board by the parents, the common denominator is a plea for information, transparency, and respect of community inputs. Unfortunately, the board and the superintendent do not demonstrate any good faith to be open and transparent with the community. Issues important to the community are decided behind a closed door, kept secret, and the parents and residents are expected to accept consequences without questions asked. For instance, the new sex ed curriculum was developed in strict secrecy despite the energy from the parent willing to actively contribute to the process. The curriculum was presented as final a week before the school started. The school knew that each parent has a right to opt out. However, the school did not develop any opt-out forms. The process of opting out was not clearly communicated to the parents. Then, in addition, the program was so rushed and implemented in the very first few weeks of the school year that it was done before the back-to-school night, where parents might have asked questions about it. During the back-to-school night, I did not hear one teacher mention health curriculum. If the sex ed is such a great benefit to our children, why are we hiding it? Why is it kept as secret? Where is the broadcasted communication from the district sharing the benefits that the middle school kids will be learning about adult sex topics? Now, another example is the kindergarten program. The district managed to put out the question on the ballot, but failed to explain to the whole community why the tax increases are necessary. The district communicated materially understated tax increase projections at first. The message was shared only with the school families. The tax increase would impact the whole community, so the honest communication should be directed to the whole community. If there is any merit to ask for a tax increase, there should be no deception or secrecy. In light of the gross misrepresentation of costs to the residents and lack of the proper disclosure of the kindergarten funding needs and costs, I feel the question on the ballot should be deemed as void. When the board shares proper proposal with all taxpayers for the kindergarten program with full cost and funding disclosure, we can have a referendum to vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vila, for your comment.
evening. I'm glad transparency was brought up because I have a problem with the Monty Children First candidates and their lack of transparency. They have recently on their website and on social media recommended a form parents may use
To the microphone so we can hear you.
a form parents may use to opt out of the health curriculum. They say it's only a suggestion that can be edited, but it's a 2-page document which contains 16 bullet points, most of which are homophobic and has nothing to do with sex ed. This form was taken from the website of the Liberty Council, an organization listed as an extremist hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. In addition to helpfully providing on their website this divisive and homophobic form for parents to use, the Liberty Council also strongly promotes conversion therapy, which aims to change a person's, usually minors, sexual orientation, essentially recruiting or indoctrinating them into an acceptable heterosexual lifestyle. This practice is so damaging to those forced to undergo it that 26 states have fully or partially outlawed it, and every major health and mental wellness organization has come out against it. The American Medical Association has stated conversion therapy has no foundation as scientifically valid medical care. Finally, the site has archived numerous anti-Muslim podcasts and contains screeds against the Black Lives Matter movement. This is the site from which they took their form. As Dr. Maya Angelou says, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. I am really tired of hearing about drag queen every meeting. And it's nice that it was brought up because I'd like to make a correction to a mistake that was made at the last board meeting. And since we can't use names, I'll just say this individual, I'll refer to him as he who is obsessed with Monica Sunbeam. At the last board meeting, this member of the public, he demanded he be given 6 minutes instead of the allotted 3 minutes. His rationale was, this is a quote, "This is a Fourth Amendment issue, equal protection under the Fourth Amendment." He repeated this again before leaving the podium. The problem, of course, is that the Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable search and seizure. The 14th Amendment contains the Equal Protection Clause. I just didn't want anybody who was paying attention to be confused by that mistake. Thank you. You got that on film, Jeff?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you for correcting me. We'll correct you too when you make mistakes. Got a few.
Good evening, Craig Offenberg, 46 Catskill Court, LB. I would just like to thank the lady who got up and talked about what's going on with her experience with the pre-calculus program. I wasn't able to hear all of it, but I think the takeaway from her comments for me is that these are the issues that are really important. These are the things that parents should be coming to the board and talking about and sharing with the public. These are the specific issues that we need to care about. We just watched a presentation that showed that our children have probably suffered a 10% learning deficit in the last 2 years as a result of COVID. It looks like it's commensurate with the rest of the state, but it's a deficit nonetheless. I think it's time to get past some of these other points that we're talking about for months and months at a time. Kindergarten is on the ballot. Either you're voting for it or you're not voting for it. The board has been transparent about what it is. If your property is assessed at $500 grand, it's about a $200 increase. There was a typo on the website. It's been fixed. It's been cleared up. You're either for it or you're against it. It's not being pulled from the ballot. With respect to the LGBTQ+ issues, it is now in the curriculum. Can we please get back to actually being children first, coming to these meetings, talking about what our kids' experiences are in this district and what we can do as parents to try to fix that. Thank you.
Janet Church, 24 Elm Drive, for a second time at the podium today. Right before last month's meeting, the order of focus areas was changed, with academics moved from number 3 to number 1. After some follow-up questions to the board, it was revealed there is no ranking and that each focus area has equal weight. In a follow-up email, I requested that if that is the case, the board should make this clear. This is part of being transparent. I still don't see any notation on the agenda today discussing that these are weighted equally. At the last meeting, another parent and I brought up the decline in state rankings for our school district. Yes, rankings are weighted differently by different entities, but these rankings are looked at by parents, quality teachers, colleges, potential homeowners, and realtors. And I'm sure that were Montgomery in the top 5 of any rankings, it would be publicized by the board. And again, much of these rankings are affected, as good as they are, possibly, by parents who are employing tutors for their children. I have also not yet had clarity on how opting out of health curriculum works when the curriculum will be taught across 7 different disciplines, not just health. Can you please explain how these two statements can coexist? It was mentioned before by Mrs. Henderson about the email issue. I was also wondering if you've notified the public of the issue, if there were any that were missed. I noticed as well that the list today or on the agenda didn't go back any further than my email, so I don't know what happened to any of the emails that went into quarantine before then. School email filters could create a security risk if somebody's essential information might come through that to prevent a potentially dangerous situation, so that's concerning to me. Another issue I wanted to raise, there was a HIB report last month, and I couldn't find the presentation on the website, so the statistics are blurry in my mind, but I was wondering about the alleged versus confirmed HIB violations, and what is the recourse for a student falsely accused of a HIB violation? Thank you for bringing up the tax levy situation earlier. I think there should be a township e-blast about the change. I don't think just changing on the website, when obviously people have already seen
30
that,
seconds.
is going to be very helpful. I'd like to know what the purpose of the MTEA report is. Last month, all we heard were complaints about parent feedback. I don't think that was really very helpful. I really just want to get this out quickly. I thank you for your time to give information back to the board from the residents. If you hear the same issues come up over and over again, it is because the questions may not have been addressed to the satisfaction of the residents, or the comments seem to go unrecognized. I have also heard some residents and presenters complain about other parents' concerns, but do so without really listening to parents. They don't know their parents, diverse families, cultures, religion, or life experiences, or our values. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
Good evening. Karen Gavorkian, 345 Belmead Briggstown Road, Belmead. I'm a lifelong resident of the township. As you know, I raised my children. They went through the schools, they're teachers now. I'm invested in the district and in the community. I've said many times before that I'm interested in other opinions. Someone spoke recently whose opinions maybe I don't agree with, but I respect the way that they were delivered. I am first vice president of the MTEA. I'm also an 8th grade language arts teacher. I have taught some of the students of people in this room, and you know who you are. I have done my best to protect those students when I coach the debate team or I run my classroom. It's always respect first, all opinions welcome. I will not sit there quietly while my friends and colleagues, whom I have respected for my entire career, are blatantly disparaged in what I would consider a lazy approach to dissension. Max Rodriguez is an honorable man. Jim Dolan is an honorable man. They do not lie. You may disagree with their approach, but they are not liars. MTEA is not an organization to be disparaged. I have worked very hard with them, and I only associate myself with organizations, including this district, that I respect and I find honorable. Thank you.
questions. One is I got here late, so I apologize. One I'd like to know, what happened to Alicia? Is she coming back? Number two is, I'd like to come back at the next meeting. I just need to know what the protocol is. I'd like to play our Harmonica Sunday video for the public, so I just need to understand. I believe I have to request that from the board secretary, so I guess David is the new board secretary. So I'd like to request that for the next meeting. Thank you.
My name is Ping Dachnaro Skillman. People probably noticed that there's a new store called CBD Health and Wellness next to Wawa. For most of you who don't know what CBD is, it's the second most prevalent active ingredient in marijuana. A significant safety concern with CBD is that it's primarily marketed and sold as a supplement, not a medication. Currently, the FDA doesn't regulate the safety and purity of dietary supplements. So you cannot be sure that the product you buy has active ingredients at the dose listed on the label. I visited the store after it opened 2 weeks later. I have talked to the owner regarding the products. There seems two types of products. One type contains CBD, which is the milder drug component. Another kind contains THC, the most active ingredient in marijuana. Not like CBD, which is psychoactive. THC produces the high feeling. THC binds with the cannabinoid CB1 receptors in the brain. High THC use may be connected to long-term negative psychiatric effects. This may be especially true for adolescents who consume large amounts of THC. The THC products requires proof of age of 18 years old. With the free access, which means no prescription required, of the CBD and THC products at our local store, I want to ask the board, what are the preventative actions the schools will be taking? How would you control the THC products to be bought by our senior students who turned 18 and sell them to younger kids? Thanks.
Jessica Mittner, Millstone River Road. I was up here last time and addressed a couple of things about concerns that I had as far as an extracurricular activity for my son in 4th grade. And I appreciate your answer as to that I signed to release him from an academic class in order to attend the band class, which I'm pretty sure I was aware when I was, but that wasn't my whole point. My point is that as educators, I'm sure you guys all understand that there are methods of writing where when you write repeatedly certain things, you really drive certain things home. So I don't know if there was a misunderstanding where when I said I didn't feel like that was pronounced and put out there the same way that my responsibility financially for renting the instrument and for the transportation to the school before was was presented. So it may have been in there somewhere, and I know it's my responsibility, I didn't see it, which is fine. So following to that is, does the teacher track throughout the year my son's academic progress? Because me asking him is not going to be enough. So I just want to make sure that if there is a red flag, that he gets pulled down in time before it's too late for him to lose that time. And then coming back to all the shots fired, we're forgetting what we're here for, and that's our children. And every parent should have a right. So whether you think it's right or wrong, that is your right, that is your child, and either way, that should be respected. And the boundaries are crossed, because it's not fair that I can sign a paper and the school can take him out to play an instrument, but I can't sign that same paper and withdraw my kid from any section that is teaching him things that I feel are not appropriate. The other children can learn it, but my child doesn't have to. So if the school can make that decision, I feel as a mother I should be able to make the same decision with the same signature. It's the same person, it's still me. My mom, I'm the mom, me, the birthing person, whatever. So the way should be the same way. If my signature is good enough for you guys, for your purposes, my signature should be good enough for my purposes, because it's my child and my priorities in my household, and to my child matter as well. That's it. Thank you. So thank you everyone for your comments and questions. Superintendent McLaughlin will respond to the questions to which she has information is capable. I had a note when I arrived today to read this statement, so I shall. This is a statement from Maureen Daniels, who self-described as a Montgomery resident for 23 years. Good day, board members, educators, administrators, teachers, parents, students, and members of our community. I am writing to show support for the sex education curriculum as detailed in the New Jersey Department of Education regarding gender identity and sexual orientation. I'm a mother with 3 boys in the high school. This is a public school, and it is important for my 3 boys to have an education that is not censored in any way. They are becoming adults and need not be kept in a bubble as their parents and teachers prepare them for adulthood. Having parents opt their children out from a sex education course where they learn about different types of sexual orientation is not helpful. It can give children a message of disrespect towards others and can lead to ostracizing your children's friends and classmates. This district is all inclusive for all our kids. I've read the core instruction of what the 9th through 12th grade students would be taught in the curriculum. At its heart is teaching that every young adult should advocate and support each other when expressing their gender identity and sexual orientation. It is quite appropriate to let these young adults learn this information in a safe and dignified manner. Respectfully, Marlene Daniels. So that concludes our first public comment. Now we will transition to delivery of our board representative report, starting with the MTEA president, Jim Dolan.
Mr. Nolan.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dolan, I forgot.
The questions to answer.
Superintendent McLaughlin's going to answer some of the questions that were presented to her.
So the question regarding the emails being filtered, that was our district filter, right? So the Board of Education email has been taken out of the filter, so that will not happen again. There's a list of words that are listed as why an email will go to quarantine. So that is why any email was put into quarantine. I had never heard of that issue before. I didn't even know about the quarantine until you came to the meeting and said that had happened to your email.
I would assume that if anybody had an important email that wasn't responded to, they would pick up the phone and call or come to a meeting and reach us if there was some kind of urgency to the matter. So moving forward, none of the Board of Education emails will be filtered, so they would all be received. There was a question about the HIV report and the alleged versus the founded cases. So it was asked what happens to someone who claims to have been the victim of HIV or reported HIV and it's unfounded. There's so many circumstances around that. A lot of unfounded HIVs are a code of conduct. They just don't rise to the level of being an HIV. So that would be very specific to the case, and discipline for any false allegation would be handled the same way in our student code of conduct. The parent who spoke about the AP exams, we are looking at new pathways for high school students, so all the prereqs and the course selection guide, as you said, are looked at, and we will continue that conversation. So thank you for coming up and speaking about that. I will be asking the township if they will send an email blast out or at least post on their website the kindergarten information, the financials. So thank you for that input. There's a question, what happens to the business administrator? That's a confidential personnel matter that we cannot share publicly. And then, I don't want to speak on behalf of the board, but I would not permit a video to be shown at a public Board of Education. Do you want to speak to that one? Request for a video to be shown. The public does not have the right to show a video at a Board of Education meeting. So I just want to remind everyone, this is a meeting of the board in public. It's not a public meeting with the board, right? So there's definitely a difference in those definitions.
And Superintendent McLaughlin and I will absolutely confer with our board attorney regarding your request, Mr. Horn, and we'll get back to you.
And the Health and Wellness Center that was spoken about, the CPD Health and Wellness Center. So our health curriculum has age-appropriate lessons on drug and alcohol and safety. And so that is constantly spoken to with the children. If there is to the question about what are the preventative actions, in addition to the health curriculum, we also have school-wide events around drug and alcohol awareness. If there were to be somebody who was of age and selling to younger kids, that would be a criminal offense, and that would be reported to the police. And the question regarding signing your child out of other courses outside of the health curriculum, that is not allowed by the state of New Jersey. The only opt-out for parents is the health MPE curriculum, or the health curriculum, sex ed curriculum.
And I'd also like to clarify very clearly for everyone about, as it aligns to full-day kindergarten, full-day kindergarten would simply mean that those kindergarten students would have the same exact day schedule as the first and second graders that attend Orchard Hill. Additionally, there are several board members that have children who attend Village, LMS, UMS, and the high school. And each board member has reported that during back-to-school night, every health teacher spoke specifically about the HPE curriculum. I have 5 children. My younger son is a senior in Montgomery High School, and his health and PE teachers offered to converse with all of the parents one-to-one so that they could have, assure them some privacy, whereby they could submit any questions or concerns or any related comments at that time. And for Jessica, I do recommend, I know Superintendent McLaughlin, you may have addressed it, I can't recall it, that you speak explicitly, with your child's teacher. And this is Village Elementary School, and the Village Elementary School principal about your matter. It is their responsibility to work with you and help you, or at least support you in providing a quality and appropriate, access to education for your son. So thank you. Mr. Dolan?
Good evening, board members. Jim Dolan, president of the Montgomery Township Education Association. Welcome to our people watching virtually, and to everyone in the audience. I appreciate always having some friendly colleagues here as a show of support and speaking so eloquently tonight. Everything, I guess I would start by saying board candidate Rothenberg and first Vice President Karen Dvorkin really eloquently responded tonight. As far as I'm concerned, as the president of the Montgomery Township Education Association, on August 23rd at that board meeting, we said our final word on what was discussed. It's a matter of public record, so anyone's welcome to go on to the YouTube channel and check out that video. So that, as far as I'm concerned, is done. I also thank President Spence Wallace for reminding community members that the policy of the board is not to mention members of these teachers and staff and administrators during public comment. So thank you for that. On to some more fun stuff going on around the MTSD. Our community programs have started up now that we're here in October. So we're very thankful to again have support from the NJEA through PRIDE and what they call FAST grants. So we're starting out. A lot of these things have been advertised already, but just to give you a little tease and then have you go visit maybe one of our websites or check out some of the PTA newsletters and such. We are having a virtual family book series where we'll have some guest readers read to families, and then anyone attending will actually receive a copy of the book as well. So that's our second year in a row that we've been doing. That's been very successful, and I've delivered a lot of books, and the books tend to be very heavy. So I'm happy to actually personally deliver those and have all of our staff members give them out within the classrooms as well. We're also doing our second annual trick-or-treat giveaway on October 26th. This will be a drive-through event at the Upper Middle School. We've done a lot of events there, so feel free to drive by and learn more about this event as well. I'll tell you where to go. We're also participating in the Montgomery Recreation Department Trunk or Treat event on the 29th. That will be held at the high school, so that's a really fun event. And we're, for the first time, we're going to have a trunk there, I guess. So we'll have to have some people ready to decorate. We're also arranging for the first time a Halloween costume exchange for students. So we're collecting costumes, and then we'll have an opportunity on October 21st and 22nd for students to come and pick a costume, either new or new to them. So it's something we hope will be very, very successful this year, and something we can continue in the future. And we had collection boxes at all of the 5 schools to get some costumes in as well. So I realized that was a lot of information and a lot of dates, and sometimes not enough specific information. So if you are interested in any of these events, as board members to attend, to see what's going on, or community members, I invite you to go and check out the PTA newsletters, because there's information on that. Check out our social media page. There's information posted there constantly. And you can also go to our mteanj.org website, and there's information posted on there. And for many of these events, there's sign-ups. That way, because there are limited supplies that we'll be giving out, limited gifts that we'll be giving out for some of the drive-thrus and such. So I invite you to go check that out. And just so you know, we don't forget about our members as well. We do have a book club that will be starting. And this one is titled, with a little play on words, She Means Well. So it sounds like a fun little read that our members will be reading. And it's by the author, Quinta Brunson. So you might know her from TV. I think she's on a couple of ABC shows. So it looks like a fun little read that our members will enjoy. And so, from some of our past book clubs that we have done, we've gained a lot of information as an association, even from communication to different ideas that have helped our association grow, and some we've even shared with administrators as well. It's helped us all. So thank you for the time this evening, and I'll see you next month.
Thank you, Mr. Joel. So board member delegate reports will begin now.
I have a couple. I guess I'll start. So last week was filled with meetings, so tonight I'm going to have 4 reports. So I'm sorry that you have to go through this, but I did attend the Montgomery Middle School PTO on October 11th, and some of the things that were discussed that might be of interest. This week, the upper middle school is having its Camp Mason retreat that if you had kids go through the middle school, you're aware of. And it's a great way to start the year. The PTO had actually worked to try to solicit camping equipment that they then were able to share with students that didn't have that equipment. And they were actually very successful and received everything they needed. So thanks to the PTO for that. The PTO also had their book fair at the end of September and sold over $15,000 in books. And they were also able to get books that they were able to donate to children in the community. And the money raised is used for grant requests, which are submitted by the staff and evaluated by the PTO. Finally, the PTO has close to 400 members. And as I said at the last meeting, I encourage all parents and even community members to join the various parent-teacher organizations that are in each school. Staff can also join at a reduced rate, and so I think that it's a great organization that does try to help the education of our students. Second liaison report was I attended the Somerset County ESC meeting, the Educational Services Commission, on October 12th, and we heard a report from the superintendent there about the opening of schools. And I should say that the way the ESC works is that the boards within Somerset County appoint someone who's a member basically of their Board of Education. And so I'm one of the representatives, and Maria also is an alternate who pitches in when needed. But the ESC, one of the things that they do is they support students with special needs. They have classes that students attend. This year their enrollment is up 25%, which is going to help them continue their programs. Another major activity of the ESC is transportation. And this year they're coordinating over 250 routes for 35 different districts around the state. They also have vans and buses that they're available to rent out to districts on a monthly or long-term basis. And then finally, the superintendent presented the district and superintendent goals for the ESC, and those were adopted. I know you're all on the edge of your seat waiting for the next 2 reports, so hold on for a second.
Are there any more board delegate reports at this time? Board Member Bursch will talk about that in a moment. Thank you. All right, hearing none, we're now at the point of our agenda where we're here on board committee reports, starting with the assessment, curriculum, and instruction report, to which I will share. Good evening again, everyone. It's a pleasure to continue to serve on your behalf as the chair of the ACI committee. This calendar year, the Assistant Superintendent, Davian Papa, is the co-chair. We met on Wednesday, October 12th. At the beginning of the meeting, the Supervisor of Visual and Performing Arts, Mr. Adam Marshawski, presented the proposal for the choral performance and cultural tour of Canada, specifically traveling to Montreal and Quebec City. The itinerary is tentative at this time and will become more explicit after the trip is board approved. The students will participate in a minimum of 5 performances, as well as spend the day at McGill University attending various workshops with their choral directors. Because the trip is scheduled for Memorial Day weekend next year, it is likely the students will be absent 1, possibly 2 days. The estimated cost of the trip is $1,380. Mr. Wachowski recommends all parents who purchase this trip for their child consider trip insurance. And this will enable parents to receive at least 75% of the cost back should the purchase result in cancellation. When asked, Mr. Wachowski stated that families who may require financial need will have access to high school level and or district level support. Approximately 120 students are eligible for the trip based on the enrollment at the Montgomery High School choir course. Next, the Data Equity and Diversity Director, Stacy Young, reported on the state assessment review that she presented earlier in this public meeting. And we thank her for her openness to the feedback and suggestions submitted by the participants in the meeting. The board looks forward to hearing more about the types of proven evidence-based interventions for all students, and especially Black and special education students, our lowest performing subgroups within the district. On behalf of the Director of Counseling, Damian Papa, reported that the Week of Respect took place October 3rd through the 7th. The Week of Respect is an opportunity for New Jersey schools to focus on building and supporting positive school climates for students, staff, and the entire school community. All of our MTSD schools facilitated various types of activities that promote respect and dignity for all who engage within our schools. Depression screenings will commence the week of October 24th at the high school, in November at UMS, and January of 2023 at LMS. And finally, for all those parents of seniors and senior students too, the admissions game presentation conducted by experts, self-proclaimed expert, Peter Van Buskirk, is scheduled to take place tomorrow, October 19th, in person at the Impact. For more information, please reach out to your child's professional school counselor. Next, we will hear from Board Member Burch with the Equity Committee report, followed by Board Member Spina with our ARRC report, and then Board Member Spett with his 2 final reports of the evening, OFF and PCC. Board Member Burch.
I am reporting on the Equity Committee that met last week, and we reviewed the statistics on HIV and assessment. Short and sweet.
Thank you.
There is no report from the ARS.
So the Operations, Facilities, and Finance Committee, which we commonly refer to as OFF, met last Friday. The monthly reports and other matters are on the agenda tonight under the 3.0 section. We discussed the 3-year maintenance plan that's required by the state, and that's actually on the agenda also. And that plan looks at last year and this year's plan for maintenance. even though we started the 22-23 school year, the planning and development for the 23-24 school budget has already begun. So that's a way to kind of look at what's coming up. And so the committee reviewed the budget calendar. As we've discussed previously, the district uses a bottom-up approach to developing the budget, where the school and department administrators review what they will need to deliver the programs that they're responsible for, and then those needs are examined to balance the benefit with the cost and continue the budget creation process. The board has an opportunity to request or discuss items that they think should be included in the program that will have a budgetary impact. And I'd also like to solicit input from the public on the budget. You can provide that during the public comment periods that are available or via email. However, districts, one of the challenges we have is that districts are constrained from raising their budgeted tax levy by more than 2% a year. So we have to stay within what's normally called the cap. And so with inflation, rising healthcare spending, and other costs, you can see that creating the budget is going to be a challenge. And finally, the committee discussed full-day kindergarten and finances around that, and that's already been presented this evening. So moving on to the Policy and Communications Committee. So it met on October 13th. One of the things that people will see that we do at each board meeting is we talk about policies that are being changed. A lot of times they're being changed because of regulatory changes or legislative changes. Last meeting we brought up some policies for first reading. There were no changes proposed for those, so they're up for adoption tonight as agenda item 1.3. We also have 5 policies and regulations up for first reading under agenda item 1.2. One of the policies that I'll just mention, since it was discussed for a fair amount of time, is a policy around website accessibility. Accessibility is, for those of you who aren't aware of it, is particularly important for blind people. And it involves creating web pages where there's actually tags and descriptions that are embedded in the HTML. And so that when a blind person is on a particular website, they can use a screen reader which will actually find those tags and descriptions and be able to tell them what a picture represents and things like that. So the superintendent, one of the things that she reported was the district website. When we started the process of evaluating ourselves, we originally had a level of 49% compliance, and we're pleased to report that it's now up to over 98%. So great progress is made there. It does require ongoing work because people have to make sure the web pages they post have the right information there. And I'd like to, since I talked about policies, I'd like to remind the public that all of our policies are available on the district website under the BOE tab. So if you have any questions about some of the things that we do or why we do it, that's one place you can look. We then discussed communications, and the superintendent described the formation of a district committee to work on the recommendations that we received in the communications assessment that was performed. There are going to be representatives from each building. 1 or 2 board members will be on the committee. And so the goal is to establish a comprehensive district-wide communication framework and develop an implementation plan around that. And part of the committee's work will also be to perform a community survey so that people in the larger community, whether parents or just residents, can give recommendations for ways to improve things. There was a discussion about the salutation used in district emails. There was a recent email that used the generic term "dear caregivers" that really covers parents, guardians, whatever. And the superintendent had been asked about it and confirmed that there was an older template notification that used that term, and that that's been corrected, and all emails will use either the phrasing "Dear Montgomery Township School Community" or "Dear Parents, Guardians, and Caregivers." So we hopefully that will not be a problem going forward. And then finally, we finished the meeting with updates regarding the full-day kindergarten question on the ballot. The district continues to provide information, and we will continue to answer questions and post anything that we see that's appropriate. It was noted in the meeting that 97% of the districts in the state of New Jersey have full-day kindergarten. Montgomery is one of the 3% that doesn't. And I guess although the state doesn't require kindergarten at all, I guess one question is, do we want to get by with doing the least possible, or do we want to provide the best education possible for our children? And those are my reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Board member Specs. First, Michael Herman, would you please tell us about your Human Resource Committee report?
Sure. I will be very quick. We did meet on October 11, Tuesday, but the majority of our meeting, we had confidential staff matters that we discussed, and I am complete.
Thank you for that. And now we have our officers report. So our Special Services Ad Hoc Committee will resume their meeting time starting in November, just after the 2 fiscal year 22 subcommittees, early literacy and the IEP process, publicly report out on the work performed in those committees. Tonight, we will hear from Mr. Christopher Wilson, a district parent who will present on behalf of the Early Literacy Subcommittee. Next month, Mr. Christopher Menente, also a parent within our district, will present on behalf of the subcommittee about the IEP process. Although originally scheduled to present tonight, a work matter prevented his attendance. So, Mr. Menente was happy to reschedule, and the board is appreciative of his flexibility. The SPED ad hoc committee members develop preliminary action plans so the district may better learn their areas of issue and seek resolution and improved practice. And then the board and the MTEA negotiations teams reached a preliminary settlement agreement and signed a memorandum of agreement. The interest-based bargaining process was tedious, but both sides collaboratively progressed on issues where they were once wide apart. Is Board Member Bush present? The MOA was signed last Thursday, October 13th. Next steps will cover finalizing salary guides, reviewing Schedule B as a whole, ratification by MTEA, and a vote by the board. Board Member Bush, do you have any additional comments with regard to negotiations at this time?
Just that we're very excited moving forward.
We would like for you to approach the microphone at the dais, please, Board Member Bush. We're going to follow expectation and procedure.
Just that we're very excited we're moving forward, and a quick thank you to everybody who's been working on it, and I'll do an appropriate thank you when we finalize all this next month.
And we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge Board Member Bush as the lead negotiator for the board, who did an outstanding job during this 9-month process. All right, so, Mr. Wilson, are you ready?
Yes, Madam President, I am ready.
Okay, great. And before you begin, thank you, everyone. The board issues a most sincere and enthusiastic thank you for remaining for this second part, if you will, of our agenda, so that you're able to participate in and be witness to Mr. Christopher Wilson's, passionate and well-respected presentation and advocacy about early literacy. So thank you, everyone, for your presence. You may begin, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam President. Today, the Early Literacy Subcommittee, or ELS for short, releases our report on our inquiry into issues that affect students with reading disabilities in Montgomery's public education system. Right now, there are likely children in every classroom who are struggling to learn to read. A student in kindergarten is feeling shamed because they cannot spell out their name while others can. The parents of a grade 3 student are worried and frantically trying to know why their child cannot read, despite being told not to worry that they will catch up soon. How can this be? In spring 2022, the Montgomery Township Board of Education formed the Special Education Ad Hoc Committee in order to address systemic issues affecting students with reading disabilities in Montgomery Township Public Schools. The goal of the Early Literacy Subcommittee was to understand concerns about the literacy curriculum, instruction, intervention, accommodation, and assessment in Montgomery schools, impacts on students and families, and to develop a report with recommended SMART goals. ELS reviewed guidance from the New Jersey Department of Education, including the New Jersey Student Learning Standards for English Language Arts, the New Jersey Dyslexia Handbook, including the Knowledge and Practice Standards for the Teaching of Reading. Can we remove that timer by any chance?
Yes.
Or put it in the bottom corner. And NJ-DOE ELA guidance to families. NJ-DOE is clear and consistent about the importance of foundational skills and an evidence-based approach to literacy in order to meet the needs of all learners, including students with disabilities. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, among students receiving special education services, the most common category of disability is specific learning disabilities. Overwhelmingly, students in this category have a reading disability like dyslexia. I often talk about dyslexia, but this presentation is not just about dyslexia or just about special education. Only about 40 to 50% of children are able to read seemingly effortlessly. The remaining 50% may not have a reading disability, but still need evidence-based literacy instruction for skillful reading. The implications are tremendous for all children, and the district's NJSLA data indicate that we have an opportunity to improve outcomes. By the way, this isn't just about foundational skills either. Children should also have access to interesting books and a world of ideas. They should experience read aloud. They should have a chance to read and write about whatever. Go anywhere, be anything. We must ensure that all children are able to independently access and shape their world through literacy. This is the main thing, because literacy is necessary for all other things. With proactive, evidence-based instruction designed to remove barriers to learning, making the greatest impact when it's most effective, as well as the safety net of timely, early intervention, we can improve outcomes while reducing costs. Evidence-based instruction ensures that every child is welcomed into the community of readers and writers, experiencing the joy of reading that comes from being able to read, and the joy of writing that comes from being able to write. Let's explore what is meant by an evidence-based, structured approach to literacy instruction. As we have learned, some students, including but not limited to students with dyslexia, experience difficulty with word-level reading. These students have difficulty attending to the small units or parts of words. But what does instruction in small units look like? Effective instruction is not one-size-fits-all and can look different across different decoding programs or approaches, but they will share certain elements. Specifically, effective instruction will be structured in such a way as to scaffold student learning, moving from teaching simple to more complex skills over the course of instruction. 3 core principles guide the delivery of structured literacy approaches. The delivery of structured literacy is explicit, systematic, and cumulative. Within explicit instruction, a teacher directly teaches the sub-skills associated with reading. For example, a teacher would begin by teaching the letter sounds for S, T, P, O, and A. The teacher would then teach students how to blend those sounds together to read words. Sat, set. In addition, teachers will directly show students how changing a letter changes the word. Sat becomes sap, sat becomes tap, and so forth. Finally, a student would practice applying this skill while reading a book that features these phonics patterns. In contrast, there are approaches to reading that are not explicit. Some approaches to reading are based upon the assumption that through repeated exposure to words, students will either memorize whole words by sight or in a snap, or intuitively pick up on word patterns. Two types of books reflect an implicit approach to reading development: predictable and level books. Many of us fondly remember Brown Bear, What Do You See? And the delightful experience when a new animal would appear. This is an example of a predictable book. With predictable texts, readers predict the next word that will appear, in some cases without even seeing the word. But knowing the word without looking at the printed word is not reading. For preschool and young children, predictable books can be wonderful for oral language development and can help young children learn concepts of print, such as the fact that print conveys a message that is decoded by the skilled reader, and directionality, such as the reader moves from front to back and left to right when reading. These books do not, though, build word-level reading skills, as they do not direct students' attention to the alphabetic principle. School-age children may also experience instruction that is not explicit. In these classrooms, students are assigned or select level books. Parents and many teachers may assume that a book at a student's just right level will include words that the student can read, but this is not how level books work. Level books are determined by things like the number of sentences in a book, length of sentences, and the number of syllables. Therefore, lower level books will be shorter and have fewer sentences. But what is not controlled for within level books are the phonics patterns included. Here's an example of a first grade level book. Coyotes are wild dogs. Coyotes are mammals. Coyotes have a pointy face and pointy ears. Coyotes are mammals. Coyotes howl loudly. Coyotes are mammals. Are the sentences short? Yes. Is the book brief? Yes. Does the passage contain only 1 to 3 syllable words? Yes. But a first grader attempting to read this book will run into quite a few phonics patterns, including ILD, OI, long A with magic E, R-controlled EAR, owl spelled 2 different ways, OW and OU. Further, the repetition of the sentence, coyotes are mammals, will likely be memorized by a student after a couple of pages. Unfortunately, research has shown that this type of memorization will not lead to word recognition in other contexts. This brings us to the next feature of a structured literacy approach. Instruction is systematic. With systematic instruction, skills are sequenced logically. For example, as students build confidence and fluency with basic phonics concepts, more complex phonics patterns are introduced, such as consonant and vowel digraphs, 2 letters that make 1 sound, and spelling patterns like magic E. After the teacher has taught the phonics pattern and provided direct practice applying the skill to the reading of words in isolation, students will engage with reading connected, decodable text. The text is decodable because it's connected to the instruction. Of course, feedback and reteaching can and does occur during passage reading. In contrast, within guided reading, an approach to reading that makes use of level books, a teacher may preview the book with the students and introduce a new word such as the word coyote, but phonics skills are not directly taught or practiced. Instead, as students encounter unknown words, they are taught to use cues to figure out what the word is. An example of a cue may be looking at a picture to guess the word, or looking at the first letter to guess the word. As you can see, this cue is not guiding students to examine all of the letters or letter patterns within a word. Which brings us to the final element of the delivery of structured literacy, cumulative instruction. Cumulative instruction means not only that teachers will move from simple to more complex skills, but that ongoing review of previously learned skills will be integrated within students' practice. Cumulative instruction with ongoing review will look like many different things within a structured literacy approach, such as reading passages that contain newly introduced phonics skills, as well as previously taught skills, fluency work involving previously taught skills, and comparisons between new information and known information to strengthen concept development. Again, ongoing review of previously learned skills will be deliberately integrated within students' practice. In summary, a structured approach to reading is explicit, systematic, and cumulative. Now that we know what is meant by evidence-based literacy instruction, I turn to the recommendations of the subcommittee. The subcommittee report has 5 components. Today, I will focus on just 3 of those components: curriculum and instruction, screening, and interventions. When looking at curriculum and instruction, the subcommittee recommends a review of the core general education ELA curriculum, as well as instructional practices. To ensure equity and inclusion in literacy and students' right to read, key recommendations are that MTSD review the core ELA curriculum and instructional practices, especially K through 3, for evidence of 3Qing and guessing strategies, and consider a shift to explicit, systematic, and cumulative instruction in foundational reading skills, such as phonemic awareness, phonics, and reading words accurately and quickly. In addition, it is recommended that MTSD further train current and future teachers on evidence-based approaches to teaching students to read. When looking at early screening of all students, the subcommittee found that in the past, not all students were screened for risk of reading difficulties, and when screening did happen, the tools used were not always evidence-based. This resulted in delays in identifying students who needed intervention. The district recently notified parents that it has implemented Early Bird and STAR 360, which are universal screeners. However, at the time of the completion of the report, the district did not have a plan to proactively and transparently share the results with parents, and they did not have a clear plan for using the screeners to identify students that need further interventions, including students with dyslexia. As a result, by the time they are identified as needing more support or intensive intervention, students may already be years behind. To ensure equity and inclusion in literacy and students' right to read, key recommendations are that MTSD continue screening every student, at least from kindergarten to grade 3, using universal evidence-based screening tools. In addition, MTSD should use the NJ Dyslexia Handbook Potential Indicators of Dyslexia Checklist. The results to these should be communicated to parents in an open and transparent manner. We should use this screening to identify students who need reading interventions. There needs to be a clear protocol. If a student is flagged in the screener, parents should be informed and students should receive evidence-based intervention. If the rate of improvement is poor or declines, then further diagnostic assessment should be administered to determine if more intensive evidence-based intervention is necessary. When looking at reading interventions, the subcommittee found that many students who need reading interventions aren't getting them or are getting them too late. Many interventions used in MTSD are not effective for students with reading disabilities. To ensure equity and inclusion in literacy and students' right to read, key recommendations are that MTSD implement evidence-based reading interventions and ensure access to interventions is equitable and universal for all students. Further, special education classification should not be a prerequisite to receive evidence-based reading interventions. Moving forward, key recommendations are for the board to consider establishing a board policy affirming federal guidance authorizing the use of the term dyslexia in student IEPs to describe specific learning disabilities in the area of reading, establish literacy teams across schools, and establish a robust professional development program in the science of reading for improved literacy support in all settings. If the district decides to implement these recommendations, it will create an even more inclusive community. The goal is to further eliminate barriers to learning and benefit everyone. This is a class of 25 students. It's estimated that as many as 1 in 5 will have dyslexia. They cannot wait to fail before they get the instruction they need. According to the NJDOE's Dyslexia Handbook, 90% of children with reading difficulties will achieve grade level in reading if they receive help by the first grade. However, 75% of children whose help is delayed to age 9 or later continue to struggle throughout their school careers. As resilient as children are, struggling with literacy can be a daily, traumatic, adverse childhood experience. According to the Journal for Learning Disabilities, quote, youth with poor reading ability were more likely to experience suicidal ideation or attempts and more likely to drop out of school than youth with typical reading, even after controlling for socio-demographic and psychiatric variables, end quote. The Early Literacy Subcommittee findings and recommendations align with all of our 22-23 district goals and are among our most important equity and inclusion work. This work must begin now and continue until all can read. Students, families, and educators throughout Montgomery are depending on us. Can we afford to wait? Be happy to take any questions.
Do any board members have any questions for Mr. Wilson at this time? Board Member Bursch?
Not really a question. First, I just want to thank you. It's a great presentation, and it's nice to see a parent come up and participate and give us a presentation. And I would just like to ask if we could send this presentation to all of us, in particular to the equity committee, so we can look at this too and maybe work with the ad hoc committee on these issues.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Just that it's been a real privilege to work with you on the ad hoc committee and all of the other parents. To have that kind of parent involvement in our school district is really amazing, and you did an amazing job with the presentation, explaining to the public and to the board who might not have as in-depth of an understanding of early literacy. So thank you so much for the time. Great.
And just as a reminder to everyone, this is part of a board ad hoc committee report, which is, although the superintendent is a non-voting member of the board, this ad hoc committee is facilitated and stewarded by our entire board, but with 4 active members that engage with the parents on this work. And just as a reminder to Mr. Wilson and others, when provided with this opportunity, that we remember that our language is important, because in the Montgomery Township School District, we work collaboratively together. And even when there's disagreement, we do so with respect and dignity. And our purpose is not to alienate or offend any teacher in a classroom or any administrator within a department, but to look to identify ways so that all of our children have access, to a rigorous curriculum and appropriate curriculum where they can feel successful and learn and grow. All right. So now we do recommend that the Board of Education approves the minutes. There are 2 meeting minutes requiring approval tonight, and they are the September 27th, 2022 executive session and public business meeting. So I'd like a motion to approve these 2 meeting minutes at this time. Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or any abstentions? Yes. Acting Board Secretary Paloma, do you have that recorded appropriately? Outstanding. So at this time, the board would like to acknowledge receipt of the published correspondence, and we've arrived at our second public comment. Members of the public are allotted 1 opportunity to address the board regarding the action agenda items only, for up to a maximum of 3 minutes during this period of the meeting. All comments or questions must be directed to the board president. The board president may need to refer an issue to the superintendent if the particular issue has not been handled through the appropriate chain of command within the school district before coming to the board for a response. Responses may be provided at the end of this session. All right, so our second public comment is closed. At this time, board members, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the action agenda items 1.1 to 4.4. I'm sorry, I did that last month too. 1.1 to 4.5.
So moved.
Okay, great. Acting Board Secretary Palumbo, roll call, please.
Ms. Bursch.
Yes.
Mr. Carlson.
1.1 to see or abstain.
Ms. Franco Herman.
Yes.
Ms. Harris.
Yes.
Mr.
Yes. And that motion carries. Thank you. So we've reached the conclusion of our Tuesday, October 18, 2022 public meeting session. We're so appreciative for all of you that have participated and for those that remain for board SPED ad hoc committee presentation. Should there be no objections, I entertain a motion to adjourn this day's public meeting session.